Head coach of the Fighting Irish, he's Brian Kelly back on the program. Well, what'd you make of USC hiring Steve Sarkisian, Coach?
Well, Steve is obviously quite familiar with the program. I think it's a big job at USC, and he knows the inside out of that job. And, you know, recruiting, as you know, is so important. And, you know, he's got a great base, great recognition, you know, throughout the West Coast. So I really think that, you know, they're going to hit the ground running there.
But you look at these jobs, and to get these jobs when you have a job, can you let me behind the curtain here of how it works, where you can still do your job and have somebody do the work for you, at least covertly, to find out about it, or they can contact somebody? How does it work?
Well, you're working through a third party. Generally, you're never having a direct conversation with, you know, Pat Hayden per se. It's, you know, a lot of times there's there's somebody that is hired. The university is hiring a headhunter, if you will, or your agent is making those kind of inquiries and calls and letting them know whether there's an interest or not, so you can focus on the job at hand. So, you know, you try to keep that buffer so there's not that direct, you know, contact, so you can, again, you know, stay focused on what you're doing at the time, because the timing of this stinks. You know, you're in the middle of coaching your team and doing what you want to be doing, and that is focusing on the next game.
Well, shouldn't there be a process here where we're fair to the season, the bowl game? I know everybody wants to get a jump on recruiting and all of that stuff, and there's a big window between final regular season game and the bowl game, but now you got this awkward moment with Washington's program, with USC's program. You got bowl games coming up. And really, the kids, you know, what are they thinking here with this? How do we rectify this?
Well, I've been asked this question a number of times because I've been through it too many times. And I think, you know, when you look at how this works, is that if everybody, you know, lived in a vacuum in this situation and said, look, no jobs can be altered or changed, then nobody can get fired during the season. But that just doesn't work that way. You know, people are let go during the season. Lane Kiffin was fired, 5 games into the season. And so now that chain of events is triggered. So you would have to say, look, you have to honor those contracts through the year, and then you would have to follow that up by saying, look, nobody can leave until the end of the season. I just don't think that that's, you know, anybody's willing to go to that level, because you're going to have presidents, ADs, coaches, everybody on the same page. I just don't see that happening.
Well, I can fire you and somebody takes over on an interim basis. We saw that at USC. It happens all the time. I just think when you're taking a coach from another school during the season or at the end of the season, that's where it gets tricky. So that's why I'd like to be able to modify that before. I don't know. It feels like nobody cares about the program or the kids. And, you know, Ed Orgeron just left. You know, you got Sarkisian's not going to be there for a little bit. You got a bowl game here. I don't know. It's just I don't like it.
I know. There's no real good answer, and I don't think that there's a good feeling about it on either side, because the group that's caught in the middle is the one that's at Washington right now. They're trying to find a coach for their team that is trying to win 9 games, and it's never an easy one to kind of get through.
He's Brian Kelly, Notre Dame head coach, joining us. Dan Patrick Show. You guys beat Michigan State. If Urban Meyer called, let's say your best buds, and he says, "Hey, what do you think? What can we exploit?" What would you tell him?
Wow. You know, we've played everybody in the country that's, you know, from, you know, the 8th ranked team, 11, 12, 22, 23. We've played a lot of good football teams. There's not a better defense in the country that we've played.
Really?
And Stanford's pretty good too. There's apparently no weaknesses in our estimation as you attack them. You try to get big chunk plays. You try to push the ball down the field, because you cannot win a battle at the line of scrimmage. They're just not going to give up enough for you to win playing that kind of game. They're just too good up front. They commit so much to the front in terms of safety support. You got to try to get the ball outside and do the best you can and trying to get some big chunk plays.
Who would you vote number 1 in the country? Who did you vote number 1 in the country?
Florida State. I think the one knock on Florida State over the past few years is that they haven't been able to rally against, subpar competition, and this year they handled subpar competition, and the game was over at halftime. So I think they've answered that quite well and played consistently all season. So in my estimation, once Alabama lost, they were my number one team all year. Once Alabama lost, I thought it was easy for me to move Florida State to be number one.
But I have a problem when we look at a team that's undefeated, therefore they must be better than a team with one loss. And I know you guys went through it last year. I didn't think you guys were one of the two best teams in the country, but you were undefeated. The system says, in the BCS, you're going to play for the national championship. Is Ohio State better than Alabama?
It's a good question. I don't know that. I don't think we can definitively say one way or the other that they are definitively, and so.
But they lose on a fluke play, though, Brian. If they win that game against Auburn, are you going to tell me that Ohio State is still better than Alabama?
No, but at least the game is tied and it goes to overtime, and maybe they lose it in overtime. So, for me, the point being is that if you're still unblemished and you haven't lost in 2 years. I think you at least earned the benefit of the doubt that as an undefeated team, you get that opportunity. And that's how I played it in my balloting, that this team hasn't lost a game in 2 years. They're going to get an opportunity to play for the national championship, provided they beat Michigan State. That's how I took it.
That's true. How could you not cry if you're Nick Saban when you're walking off the field to be stunned like that? Like have you ever had a loss where you go, that it reduces you to tears?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And Notre Dame, it's every weekend.
No, but I mean, have you cried?
Is the next day.
Have you cried?
Yeah, certainly under those circumstances, because you created the scenario, right? You did everything you could to get your field goal team on it. You didn't manipulate the situation, but you created the situation by getting a second back on the clock. Yeah, that's gut-wrenching, to say the least. And when the ball was kicked, I got to tell you, there's nothing that is, from my standpoint, there's no worse feeling than watching offensive linemen trying to cover a kick in the game of college football.
Oh, man.
It is. There's not a worse feeling than that.
Before I let you go, what are you doing with the BCS? You got something you're doing with
Yeah,
Vizio?
I'm helping out Vizio. It's recruiting season, so we're searching for the nation's most diehard college football fan, and we're going to reward them with a trip to the Vizio BCS National Championship game, and they're going to get a 55-inch smart TV. And if you just go on Vizio.com /BCS fan throwdown, and you can submit an entry. You can prove why you're the college football biggest fan. If you do it by December 15th, you got to hurry up. You also, just by entering, you'll get all kinds of prizes. So, it's recruiting season, so we got to find that nation's most diehard college football fan with the, Vizio BCS fan throwdown. So it's pretty cool.
Give me that website again.
It's Vizio.com /BCS fan throwdown, and you got to submit fast. It's due by December 15th.
Good to visit with you again. Good luck in the bowl game.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Brian.
having me on.
That's Brian Kelly, Notre Dame head coach.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.